Advertising research. Advertising research is any type of research that helps in the development, the execution, or the evaluation of advertising and promotion. So that's three different steps: development, execution, and evaluation. The account planning department is the department that's in charge of, or this is their job, doing advertising research. Sometimes, if it's a smaller agency, they may outsource the work and not maybe not even have an account planning department. And then you have agencies that's all they do, or research firms. So they assist in determining the market segments. They play a key role in helping creative understand the audience that they're creating the ads for. So the next few slides, maybe two, should be research for you guys. I'm sure you have talked about research or done research in several classes, especially your gen ed classes. So I'm going to go through them briefly. The first one is reliability, meaning consistent findings over time. So that's the method generates general consistent findings over time. So, in other words, two versions of the same test given to the same individual will score about the same if nothing major has changed. So, for example, you weigh yourself throughout the day. If at 9 a.m. you weigh 130 pounds, and then at 5 p.m. you weigh 155 pounds, that's an indication that that scale is not reliable. So that's what we mean about by reliable. So like the survey you're using, is it a reliable scale? And can we use it to find, if we gave it to another researcher, could they use it? Would it be reliable for them? Validity. So this means that the information generated is relevant to the research question being investigated. So what we're saying is the instrument measured what it claimed to measure. So for example, a test of intelligence should measure intelligence and not something else like memory. It must measure intelligence if that's what you're looking for. So you have to be very particular about the type of questions you ask on a survey and an interview and things like that to get what you're looking for. Trustworthiness. Can you trust how the data was collected? Can we trust that the researcher did the research as it's been reported? So this is like, you think about ethics. If I was a researcher and I was gung ho on I believe I believe something, and I do all this research and find out that's not true, but I report it as if, yeah, I found out what I thought was happening here, and here's my proof. So you have to be trustworthy to be a researcher, and it's just a matter of ethics. So can we trust that researcher and how they went about getting their data? Meaningfulness is, what do the results of the research really mean? So this is you interpreting the data. And so mainly this would be with qualitative research. So like you do an interview, and when you do an interview and you're doing a report, you don't just report your questions and your answers for every, person. You actually throw in quotes in there to support your claims, but you actually summarize it. So keep that in mind if you decide to do quantitative research. Make sure you think about these things that I've said, especially the meaningfulness. So let's talk about specific type of research methods. Most of these should be familiar to you. You probably have done at least two of them. and one of them being a survey. So that's just a structured questionnaire that you would do. You create the questions and you have people answer it. It could be online, they can fill it out on paper. That's a survey. Focus groups, you guys might have done focus groups or even participated in focus group. So groups of people are asked about their perceptions, opinions, beliefs, their attitude toward a product or service or either a concept. It can be about a advertisement. It's kind of like a brainstorming session to get others their ideas, but it's not a whole lot of people. It might be about 5, 6 people in the focus group. Interviews. So this is when the researcher sits down with the participant and asks predetermined questions. Now, that's traditional to sit down with the person and interview them. Sometimes you can email a person you want to interview and send them the questions and they can send it back to you, especially with everybody being so busy these days. But in general, it's you sit down with a person and you ask them these questions. And it's not just like a survey where it's like yes or no answers or click this one or choose this one. Somebody, you ask them a question and they answer it, and then you can probe for them to elaborate on it and get more information. So those three should be familiar to you guys. The next four could be, but I'm not sure, so we're going to cover it anyway. Observation. This is when you watch your subject without interfering. So let's say I am doing research on Play-Doh and I want to see how people interact with it. And I'm studying adults, not kids, not the general population. So I sit it on the tables in a coffee shop and just sit back and observe, what people do if they pick it up. If they pick it up, what do they do with it? Do they try to make things? Do they just start squeezing it? Do they not even notice it? That's observation. Ethnography is on the same terms. However, you're not just watching the subjects, you get involved with the participants that you're studying. So, like if you're studying a culture, or let's just use a sorority or fraternity. So I want to study a particular sorority. So what I do is I join the sorority and get involved in as if I'm a participant. Sometimes the subjects know that you're part of it and you're doing research, and sometimes they don't. So kind of think of it as like a narc that would be undercover at a school, a high school or college, as a college student, looking for like if kids are doing drugs and things of that nature. Experimental is a systematic and scientific approach to research in which the researcher manipulates one or more variables and predicts, controls, and measures any change in other variables. So this is one of the main types of research that I do, where, let's say, for example, I take an ad and I'm going to show 3 different groups this ad and see, I might want to check how they respond to it emotionally. So I'm manipulating things in the ad, just to see, whatever it is I'm looking for. So that's the experiment. The subjects don't know what the experiment is about so that you don't have any bias. And then you collect the data and you analyze the data. And the last one, content analysis, is another one that I do a lot of research with. So this is a technique for systematically describing written, spoken, or visual communication. So communications, I'm sorry. So Like, for instance, I did a research before where I was going through magazines and like counting how many people that I see with a certain type of hair or a certain skin complexion. So you're counting things, but it's on a system. It could be counting visuals, it could be spoken, something that people say, or when I say something that people say, so let's just say you watching TV and you want to see how many times do people say a certain phrase that might be of interest to you. So that's content analysis. Um, so those are the main different types of research methods. And for your purposes, you're going to pick two of them that you're going to use to create your data and analyze your data. Okay, three stages of research. So I said this in the beginning. The first one was developmental research. And so this is when, before the ads are made. So this is when you're doing your primary research and your secondary research. We're not going to go over that again. Concept testing. So this is designed to screen the quality of new ideas. So think of it as like brainstorming. So that's the concept testing. And then there's audience profiling or audience analysis. So basically, creatives need to know as much as they can about their target audience. So think about it's similar to psychographics, the activities, interests, and opinions. Think about consumer behavior, why that these people or their target consume different products or different brands. We need to know everything about this target to be able to reach them with the ads that we're creating. Moving on to stage two, and this is as the ads are being finished. So think about when you get to the stage of having comps. So this is research on the actual ads, and you're looking at the imagery, the copy, things of that nature. So how do you measure this? And this is something you can use yourself when you're creating your ads. One is a communication test. So you have two main questions that you're trying to fulfill when you're using this measuring criteria. The first one is, do they get it? And a communication test is one way to see if they get it. So basically, you're asking them, what is this ad communicating? And if it's not communicating what you want it to communicate, then you might need to adjust something or start over, go back to the drawing board. And then the second important question is, do they remember it? So a lot of different tests are done on to determine if whoever you're testing remembers your ad. So you have recall testing. So this is one of the most common tests in advertising research. So the basic ideal is that if an ad is to work, it has to be remembered. So you are shown an ad and then asked to recall the ad without seeing it again. And then you have recognition tests. So if you're shown an ad, will you recognize it? So this is an ad that you've seen before, and I say, hey, I show it to you. Do you remember this? Does it look familiar? Knowledge is another way you can test this. Some ads are judged just on, did it give the knowledge that they were trying to get across? What did you learn from this ad? If they did not learn what you wanted them to learn, if your big ideal did not come across to them, then you have some adjustments to do. Attitude change. So this is just like where the brand stands in the consumer's mind. How do you feel about the brand? How did you feel about it before you seen the ad or the ad campaign. And then you have behavioral intent. So we're thinking about purchase intentions. What do you plan to do after you see this ad? Do you plan to go out and buy this brand, or do you even think about that maybe you might buy it in the future? So, do you intend to buy the brand? So, this information right here from stage two is very important. You get some great data to help you determine if you need to make any changes. So, when you create in your ads, don't just look at it among your agencies and analyze it among your group agencies. Maybe show it to someone else that has no idea what you're doing and ask them these questions to see if you're portraying what you want to. And the final stage is the results stage. And this is after the ads are running and they've been published, and you want to know, are they working? These are called tracking studies. It's similar to the same slide before this one, except this is when the ads are running. So you want to assess the attitudes, knowledge, intent to purchase, and things of that nature. Also, estimate sales from advertising. This one is something that's a little hard to measure, but this is one that all advertisers want to see, because this is the whole point of you doing the ad, is to persuade people to buy your brand. It could be flawed, the measures and the data, but it's enough data to be able to analyze what's going on. On the internet, it's a little easier because you can measure actual behavior taking place after the person like clicks on a link. What are they doing? Are they clicking on it and then leaving? Are they clicking on it and then putting stuff into their cart? So it's different from you putting the ad out there and you don't know what people are doing, right? So you only can try to figure out what's going on if an ad is working in those terms. And then another thing is a little caution with measuring advertising is people may buy a brand long after the ad was ran. So I might see an ad that I really like, it's entertaining, it sticks out in my mind for a car, but I'm not trying to purchase a car. So you cannot persuade me to go and buy a car. However, say next year I decide I want to buy a car. That ad may pop up in my mind whether I know it or not, because it has some type of influence on me. So that's something that makes it hard to measure whether an ad or campaign is working. So the last thing is important to remember: no single method is perfect. All the different types of research methods, nothing is perfect. And this is why a lot of times researchers do mixed methods. So they might do a quantitative and a qualitative to get insight from both angles. There are always challenges with reliability, validity, trustworthiness, and meaningfulness. And then researchers are always trying to find more natural ways to do research instead of testing in the lab. And so when I say the lab, I mean like when I was explaining about experimental research, the lab may be the computer lab or the media lab. But if I'm doing research on, let's just say, how people watch movies, it would be better for me to do that research in a movie theater instead of setting that up in a media lab. So that's what I mean by natural ways. And research is not the magic truth. It should be. We want it to be, but it always can be flaws, and hopefully those flaws are so small that it's not going to negatively affect anything.